This is giant Redwood, where massive machines tame ancient timber, and every tree has a story to tell. It's just after dawn, and inside this massive timber yard, the air smells of fresh sap and sawdust. Towering stacks of raw logs sit waiting, each one thicker than a man's chest, some stretching over 20 feet long. Here they're not just logs, they're the promise of something monumental, slabs that will become tables, chairs, and counters that last a lifetime. A giant log arrives on a low loader truck, chained down like a sleeping beast. Workers in hard hats guide it down with cranes and forklifts, steadying every swing to keep thousands of pounds from rolling free. You can hear the crackle of bark, the creak of steel cables under strain. The log hits the ground with a heavy thud that rattles the concrete floor. Workers gather round it with tape measures, chalk lines, and clipboards. They measure length, diameter, curve, and grain, deciding exactly how to cut to capture the most beautiful slabs with the least waste. Not every log is equal. Some have deep cracks, hidden knots, or rusty nails embedded from decades in an old forest. Inside, a single flaw can snap a blade or ruin a piece meant for a luxury dining table, so the inspection is careful. Slow passes of a metal detector, notes scribbled in notebooks. Standing beside a log this size, you feel its silent weight, the centuries it took to grow, the storms it survived, the story it carries. It's humbling. Because once the saw starts, there's no turning back. This is where the real work begins. The log waits, massive and unmoving, like an ancient relic ready to be reborn, one slice at a time. Deep inside the mill, where steel beams echo and sawdust drifts through shafts of light, the heart of the operation comes alive. The massive band saw. It stands 2 stories tall, its spinning blade a thin ribbon of steel that hums with raw power. Workers move around it like surgeons, checking guides, tension wheels, oil lines. One slip of this blade could ruin thousands of dollars in timber or cost a life. A crane swings the log into place, settling it on a rolling carriage that moves forward inch by inch into the blade's bite. There's a low rumble as the motor winds up, then the first tooth touches bark, and the log shudders as a clean slab peels away. Long strips of fresh timber slide down conveyors, still warm from the cut. The smell is thick, sweet sap, damp earth, the sharp tang of resin. In this moment, the raw heart of the tree is revealed. Tight growth rings, swirling knots, colors that shift from pale sapwood to deep heartwood. Every pass of the bandsaw must be perfect. Too fast and the blade wanders too slow and the wood burns. Sawyers stand by, watching gauges, tapping foot pedals to adjust feed speed and pressure. A single nick in the blade can leave scars that ruin a tabletop meant for a luxury home. Sparks fly sometimes, a buried nail or a metal staple hidden deep inside the trunk. That's why the crew runs metal detectors, but old logs always keep secrets. When steel meets steel, the room rings out with a shriek no one wants to hear. Slabs that pass inspection are stacked carefully, each layer divided by stickers to let air flow through. These massive planks, some wider than a man is tall, wait for the next step, drying, surfacing, and shaping into furniture that can last for generations. Back at the saw, The rhythm never stops. Slab after slab, the giant bandsaw sings its song of timber and steel, turning living trees into raw, usable beauty, one slice at a time. After the thunderous cuts of the saw, the slabs lie stacked like sleeping giants, waiting for the next transformation. Each one is unique, grains swirling like smoke, hidden knots and curves that promise beauty but demand respect. The first step is drying. Some slabs air dry for months, even years, stacked with space between each layer so the wind can carry moisture away. Others go into giant kilns, steel chambers where warm, dry air circulates for days or weeks, pushing out the last traces of sap and water. Once the wood reaches the perfect moisture content, it moves to surfacing. Heavy-duty planers shave away rough saw marks, revealing grains so vivid it almost seems alive. Patterns dance across the slab, flowing rivers of color, the rings of a century-old tree frozen in place. Next comes the wide belt sander, a machine the size of a small car, its abrasive belts gliding over the wood like gentle waves. With every pass, the surface grows smoother, turning from rough timber to something that feels like polished stone. Workers run their hands across the grain, searching for dips or imperfections only touch can find. But even the biggest machines can't do it all. Edges are shaped by hand. A craftsman follows the natural curves, removing bark, sanding contours, and leaving live edges that keep the wild spirit of the tree intact. Sometimes flaws appear, a split down the center, tiny insect tunnels, voids that weaken the slab. Instead of discarding it, artisans fill these spaces with clear resin or bow tie inlays of contrasting wood. Each fix becomes part of the story, turning weakness into beauty. Finally, the piece is carefully sealed and finished. Oils, stains, and top coats deepen the grain, protect the wood, and give the surface a rich glow. Under bright lights, you can see the reflection of the workshop ceiling rippling on the tabletop surface. When it's done, what began as a tree felled deep in the forest stands ready to become a centerpiece, a table where families will gather, or a bench where stories will be shared. A slab, once rough and hidden in the shadows, now shines with warmth, a testament to nature's strength and the craft that brings it to life. In the timber world, cutting is only half the battle. The other half is protecting the beauty locked inside each slab, fighting the hidden threats that can split, warp, or ruin a perfect piece. Every log holds tension. Even after careful drying, moisture can still hide deep inside. A sudden change in temperature or humidity can crack a slab wide open overnight. That's why workers check each piece constantly, tapping, measuring, watching for hairline splits that grow like spider webs if ignored. Sometimes a craftsman drills tiny relief holes or inserts steel rods to keep cracks from running. In larger pieces, butterfly joints, bow tie inlays made of contrasting wood, pin the split together like stitches in a wound. Each fix must be done by hand, slow and precise, to keep the slab's strength while letting it breathe. One of the biggest threats is warping. A slab that's too wet or dried too fast can twist into a shape no planer can flatten. So, workers use moisture meters to read the core, stack planks with careful spacing and flip them often. Heavy weights or steel frames keep them true until the grain settles. Edges are another fragile place. Live edges, the natural curves that follow the tree's shape, can chip or break if handled wrong. Craftsmen sand them smooth, seal the bark if it's stable, or remove loose bark and polish the edge until it glows. When flaws show up, insect holes, knots, deep voids, many see imperfection. But for the right artisan, these become the slab's soul. Clear resin pours into voids, locking them in place like frozen rivers. It's not just about tools. A sharp chisel and steady hand are as important here as any massive saw. In the end, what leaves the workshop isn't just wood. It's a living canvas of grain, scars, and repairs, a promise that what once grew wild will stand strong and beautiful for generations. When the last pass of sandpaper is done and the final coat of finish dries under bright lights, each slab stands ready to begin its next life. No longer just timber, now a centerpiece, a conversation starter, a legacy. In a corner of the mill, movers wrap each finished slab in thick blankets and padding. A single live edge tabletop can weigh hundreds of pounds. It takes forklifts, hoists, and careful teamwork to lift it, swing it onto a truck, and secure it tight for a journey that might cross continents. Most of these giant slabs are bound for places where raw beauty is prized. Sprawling mountain lodges, beachfront villas, penthouse apartments. Architects and designers plan entire rooms around them. Open concept kitchens with massive island counters, dining halls with tables that seat 20, or office lobbies where a single conference table becomes a work of art. In these spaces, a live edge slab is more than furniture. It's a bridge between the forest and the home. The grain tells stories of storms and seasons. The knots and cracks are reminders of nature's power. Guests run their hands along the edges, feeling the curves that once lived as bark, now polished but never tamed. Transporting these pieces is its own craft. Custom crates, air suspension trucks, sometimes even cranes at the client's property to lift slabs through windows or over balconies. Every scratch, every dent avoided keeps the value intact, because a flaw in the finish can cost thousands to repair. At its destination, a team installs the slab onto a custom base. Forged steel legs, reclaimed tree stumps, or hidden brackets that make it look like the table floats. Final polish, a protective wax, and a last careful buff bring out a depth that almost glows in the changing light. In the end, what started as a tree in a distant forest now holds court in a room where people gather, eat, talk, and remember. Generations will pull up chairs to these tables, adding their own marks, a scratch from a dropped fork, a stain from spilled wine, each new imperfection becoming part of the piece's evolving story. This is the gift of Lave Edgewood, the power to stand both raw and refined, wild yet welcoming. It's a reminder that when we work with nature, not against it, the beauty we unlock can outlive us all.
Redwood.